I'm going to read an editorial piece or a comment piece written by a Muslim Arab gentleman who is not an extremist, not a jihadist, in fact, supports Israel, supports the West, and is warning about the dangers of Islamic fanaticism and the jihadists that are operating in Hamas, Sudan, Gaza, Syria, Afghanistan. But let me read this. This man's called Amjad Tahar. You can follow him on Twitter. This is what he says. They came for him at his door. He stood. He bled. He died where he first cried. Hamas kidnapped women. Islamist jihadists in Syria kidnapped Druze women. Hamas slaughtered babies. So did the jihadist army in Syria. Druze babies, born on their land, buried in silence. Hamas filmed their 7th of October genocide, proud of their crimes. So did the Islamists in Syria, laughing as they torched Druze homes, then denying it like cowards. And when Israel responded in defense, only then did the leftist media crawl out, not with truth, but with analysis from washed up MI6 clowns and ex-ISIS consultants dressed in academic shame. They said the Druze are few, but the Druze man stood alone, rifle empty, dignity full. They came for him in his home. He did not flee. He died where he was born, not in exile, not as a refugee, but as a guardian of his mountain. That, my friends, describes what's happening in Syria right now. And of course, it's not just Druze. I've seen images tonight. And of course, we've all kind of got battle hardened to this jihadist slaughter porn. But I've seen images tonight that have just made me realise how much we cannot rest on our laurels, how much we can't sit back and say, well, we're going to be okay, because my hairdresser's a Muslim and he's a lovely guy. I'm sure he is. My taxi driver's a Muslim. He's a great guy. I'm sure he is. But what we've got to remember in this country, in the United Kingdom. Now, Amjad Tahar, and I'll play the clip in a minute. Amjad Tahar, a few months ago, on GB News, said there's more Islamic extremists in the UK than the entire Middle East. Now, I don't know whether it's hyperbole, but he gives the reasons why he says that. Because the Muslim Brotherhood is allowed to operate freely. Other Islamic charities, so-called Islamic charities, which are fronts for Islamism, because of the craziness of the Islamophobia industry, and because of what's been preached in the mosques. So I'm going to show some clips, I'm going to show some footage of what's going on inside Syria right now. We can't turn a blind eye to this. We can't turn a blind eye as human beings, and we can't turn a blind eye as states. And I have a message. I have a message for the European Union, the United States, and the United States of America. You cannot make peace with savages. This is Jelani's men that are doing this. These are the people who are now in control of Syria, and they are ethnically cleansing the Alawites, the Christians, the Druze, and anybody that they consider to be collaborators in the most savage and disgusting fashion. And remember, we have a strategic interest in not allowing these people to have ungoverned spaces. I don't understand why Biden left Afghanistan to its own devices. I don't understand why the United States of America and Britain and France all seem to have a love fest with this ex-jihadi in his blood-soaked suit. Anyway, I'll play the videos, have a look. Let me know in the comments what you think. But we are living in very, very dark days. And remember, they live among us. That's not racist. That's not being xenophobic. That's not being Islamophobic. That's a statement of fact. We know there are over 40,000 jihadists living in the United Kingdom right now. And there's probably a lot more, because with this Hamas nonsense that's been going on since the slaughter of October the 7th, the numbers have grown and grown and grown.
Middle East expert Amjad Tahar joins me now in the studio. And to be honest, I was going to ask you about foreign affairs, and then we've just had a little chat in the break. And you've been talking about Britain's extremism problem. You're somebody who speaks out against anti-Semitism. You speak out in favour of moderate Islam as opposed to extremist Islam. What's your analysis of the state of affairs in Britain?
I think you have more. Well, thank you for having me. And I think you have more extremists in UK than you have in the Middle East.
Really?
At this stage, absolutely. The things that some of the Islamists say in various mosques, and we have been seeing that online, the terminology they use, the analysis they make, the statements they actually make, they would not be able to say it all the way in Afghanistan, for example, or in Iraq.
I'm not going to show the graphic pictures of the children and women and men that have been slaughtered by these absolute savage monsters. There's no point. Not because I don't want to upset you or offend you. I don't care whether you're upset or offended, but because it's graphic and disgusting, and I don't want to dishonour the bodies of these Christians and Druze, these noble people who've stayed in their country to fight for their families, to fight for the community. They haven't fled. They haven't gone on a dinghy and come to Dover. No, they've stood, they fought for, and they've protected their families. This first photograph is a Christian family. They're all dead. Men, women, and children. All gone at the hands of blood-crazed, fanatical jihadists. Little baby in this photograph, surrounded by monsters in a car, been taken goodness knows where to goodness knows what fate. A Druze baby. I'm not going to show you all of this video. I'm going to play the relevant parts to set the scene, and then I'll tell you what happened next, because again, I'm not going to graphically show the horror that's unfolding in Syria right now. But believe you me, it's far worse than we could imagine. It's a genocide. And yet you can see the tumbleweed blowing through the leftist cafes and bars in Islington tonight. I wonder how many of those people that went marching in London today, chanting free, free Palestine, would chant the same for the Druze minority that are getting wiped out while the world stands by and does nothing.
افتحوا الباب افتحوا الباب يلا افتح الباب استحالة بسرعة يلا بسرعة زد حالك يلا يلا يلا
I'm going to read the caption on this tweet, and there's a video obviously that you've just seen associated with the tweet. This is what happened to those three men. This is what that film is all about, shot incidentally by the jihadists. Cheryl E says this is just absolutely horrific. Bedouin militias force an entire Druze family to jump from their home balcony to their death. How can the world stay silent? As we look at the smoke rising from those buildings, there's that drone footage with the awful chants of jihad ringing in everybody's ears. We've got to ask ourselves one question. How many people have died? How many Druze, how many Christians have died today within the sight of that drone? And why is it important? Well, it's important because they're human beings. They're innocent human beings, and the world has turned their back on them. And I hope that the footage that's been spread all over social media, as graphic as it is, I hope some of it gets to the eyes of the President of the United States of America, because I believe he is a man of compassion. I believe he is a man that genuinely wants peace, but realizes there's a time for peace as it says in Ecclesiastes, and there's a time for war. And we cannot stand down at home or abroad and allow jihadists and Islamists to take over our nations. We must fight, 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 as President Trump said. And again, going back to 8 years ago when we started this, our catchphrase has never rung so true. We've got to stand, we've got to fight, and we've got to protect. See you all soon.